here we are again. I made a lofty goal to make more videos at the beginning of the year, and surprise, surprise, I waited, 3 months to make another video? Typical Grainy Brews. Anyway, we're here now, and I'm here to talk about a trip that I did at the beginning of the year. I went over to Nicaragua for 8 days, but this was not a leisurely holiday by any means. I was working for a coffee company called Honor Coffee. They have an internal program called Bridge to Origin, where they take people who work within the company, they send them off to a coffee farm in Nicaragua for a week to be immersed in what it takes to make coffee. And I was lucky enough to travel along and take some photos and videos for that program. This was like a dream project for me, working on a coffee farm, documenting that process, and I am very happy that I get to talk to you all about it now. Oh my God. Right, good morning. It is just over 7:30 in the morning here in Managua, capital of Nicaragua. If you're wondering why I may look a little bit and may sound a little bit frazzled, I am severely jet lagged. Like, I woke up at 2:30 this morning on about 5 hours of sleep, and yep, it's just gonna have to cop it, I guess. Anyway, I'm looking forward to making our way up to this farm, and I really have no idea what to say. We basically had a day in the capital where we could just like recharge before we headed up into the mountains where the coffee farm was. I was very thankful that we had a day to recharge, but the capital isn't really it's not really popping off, if you know what I mean. It's pretty sedate for the most part. There's a lot of interesting cars and the people are all they're all really nice, but I think we were all really just keen to get to this coffee farm and see what the deal was there. And after a 5-hour bus ride to the northern region of Nicaragua, we hopped in some utes and got immersed in farm life.
Flowers that have loads of water in them? No. They're like red flowers. Big.
Let me give you an idea of the kind of day that we would have on the farm. My alarm, well, actually, it wasn't really my alarm. Reese, the person I was sharing the room with, he would go and help Tremi, who would make tortillas for everyone on the farm at 4 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, that's how I'd wake up pretty much every day. I would walk over to the main house, write in my journal for a little bit, and then get set for whatever we were doing that day, which consisted of being immersed in coffee-related minutiae, if you will. picking cherries from the trees. Some days we would be learning about processing coffee and how that is achieved on the farm, tasting different kinds of coffee, chatting about coffee. Like, if you didn't enjoy coffee or at least have an interest in it to some extent, you would be struggling with this group, let me tell you. I think by the time lunch came around, we probably all collectively had like 4 or 5 coffees easily. Like, it was just, yeah, our heart rates would have been pinging for sure. Sometimes we would take excursions off the farm, either to visit another farm or to go to Britazul, which is the coffee mill near Ocotal, like, which was the closest, I guess, big town, if you want to call it that. Riding around in utes was probably the highlight of the trip for me. Like, you'd just be arrested in 2 minutes if you did that in Australia, but that's just how people get around in Nicaragua, and it is so much fun. You just don't want to think about the fact that they're going like 80 kilometers an hour, and if you have to stop quickly, like, you better be holding on. No one got hurt, and I got some cool photos out of it, so I think that's a win-win.
I feel we're waiting less of much.
See, it's only a few hours.
So, we'll be doing this again. Where's that Percy? Could you pass me that bucket, please?
Let's talk a little bit about my approach to the photos. So, going into this trip, obviously, like, I've never done anything like this before. I wasn't really nervous about what I would do, per se, given that you kind of have to act like a fly on the wall and take photos and get the vision of things as they happen. It feels kind of like a mix between a wedding and street photography, in a sense. That was how I was picturing it in my head. I'm pretty happy with how most of the photos came out. I think there's, like, of course it was not going to be perfect. I would change things if I had the opportunity to go back and do it again, but on the whole, I'm pretty happy with what I got. It's pretty challenging, as it turns out, to photograph in a jungle environment because the lighting is so, like, it's so intense when the sun comes out. But because of the way that the trees are situated and like the bushes, like, it's just very contrasty light. So finding ways to juggle that whilst also making subjects look flattering, like, that was an exciting challenge. I was pretty happy with some of the portraits that I got of the farm workers. I think I relied a little bit too much on going for like the environmental portrait. I wish I had focused more on getting some more, I guess, traditional kinds of portraits where you blur out the background more, but I'm just a sucker for placing people in an environment, because my belief is always that you should try and, if you're trying to represent people, you should try and let the environment speak for them as well, because it's kind of like a part of them, especially here. So my main idea for all the portraits was to try and include the environment as much as possible, but I probably could have done with a bit more variety looking back. Some of the more challenging stuff to photograph was coffee trees. As it turns out, the perfect coffee tree that I had in my mind that is somehow just grown on its own without any other trees surrounding it it's kind of impossible, as it turns out, because the way that, well, coffee is a commercial product. So the way that it would be grown, it's not organized to make it look pretty. It's there to be cultivated, and you want to make that as efficient as possible. So why would you just plant a random coffee tree on the top of a mountain with no other trees around? Makes no sense, right? Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Trying, like, picking a cherry off a tree and then tasting it. Like, my gosh, I think most people don't realize that coffee grows inside a cherry and that the beans themselves are inside it. So if you didn't know that, now you know. I'll also quickly talk about the cameras that I used. The Nikon Z6iii, which I had on loan, and lazily I just didn't get any B-roll of it, so enjoy this floating PNG for the B-roll. I'm really good at this YouTube thing, aren't I? The Nikon Z6iii, as it turns out, is a really good camera. I think it gets overshadowed by the likes of Canon and Sony. I also don't see a lot of professionals these days shooting with Nikon. You hear the odd person here and there talking about it. And I don't know what it was about it that drew me in and made me confident in using it for a trip like this, but it really held up. It is a really good camera. Even if you compare it against the likes of the Sony and Canon equivalents, I've used them all and I can tell you that there's not too much different between the three of them. There's subtle things that are different, but really, at the end of the day, you just need a solid camera, and the Z6iii definitely fulfills that. I am seriously considering getting one. Oh, and the lens that I used with it was the 24-70 f2.8. I brought a 50mm, like a nifty 50, and I used it approximately 0 times. So that was dead weight in my backpack. I only used the zoom lens the entire time because it was just so versatile. I did bring one film camera along for the trip, and that was the Canon SureShot Supreme. Is that what it's called? Yeah, that's what it's called. I think on the whole, the photos that I got on the SureShot Supreme in Nicaragua were bad. I wasn't really happy with most of them. Maybe it was the scenario, the lighting, just my mindset going in. I wasn't really thinking too much about the film photography aspect of like the lighting and the way it would look. I was thinking more of the digital kind of flexibility in post kind of mindset. I hope that just made sense. That was just some word vomit, wasn't it? My God. I did do 3 days in San Francisco on the way back from Nicaragua, and I got some more photos there on the SureShot Supreme, but that's for a different video, so stay tuned for that. You look like you're having so much fun. So to wrap things up, I've got to say that this was one of the greatest trips I've ever done in my life. I am so happy that Honor Coffee was willing to send me along with their team to take photos and do video for them. I think my favorite part of the trip, other than of course sitting in the back of the ute, was on the final day that we were on the farm. We had a bunch of producers in the local area where they came down to Britazul, and we did a cupping with a bunch of Honor Coffee and some Australian grown coffees from, I think, Crater Mountain, I believe, if I'm getting that right. I'll put the clip here. And we were talking about the coffee scene in Australia and how it's different to Nicaragua. As it turns out, not many people drink espresso. It's just too expensive to have coffee machines for most people there. So it's very back to basics there. And it was so much fun getting to share a part of what we take for granted every single day, like making flat whites for these guys and seeing like the latte art. Like they'd probably never really seen anything like that in person. So I was really happy that I got to take part in that. And even just like making the coffees themselves, like everyone was so interested, and it was really awesome. And I would love to go back there one day. Thanks for watching and taking part. Stay tuned for more videos eventually.